Hello, I'm John Deere. Welcome to Living Nonviolence. This is the first of our 6 videos for our 6-week class together. So for the next 6 weeks, I invite you to reflect with me on living nonviolence, how we can deepen our nonviolence in every area of our lives, and how we can help the global grassroots movement of nonviolence for peace and justice. There'll be a new 10-minute video every Monday. Then perhaps by Wednesday or so, you can send in a comment or a question for the online class discussion board. And then by Friday or Saturday of the week, you can share a reflection or a journal entry about the topic and the questions I'll offer. Today, I want to offer first some introductory thoughts about nonviolence, and then about the 3 simultaneous attributes of nonviolence, a nonviolent life, and then some initial thoughts about the first one, practicing nonviolence toward yourself. And every week, I will conclude with 3 questions for you to reflect on and write about and share with one another. So I want to start with 2 quotes. This is from Martin Luther King, the famous quote he said the night before he was killed in Memphis. He said, "The choice is no longer violence or nonviolence." That's not what we're talking about. It's nonviolence or non-existence. That's where we are. That's what he said 50 years ago, and I think we're still in the same situation. It's nonviolence or non-existence, and I invite us all to choose nonviolence. Well, what is nonviolence? Here's Gandhi. This is what Gandhi said. "Nonviolence means avoiding injury to anything on earth in thought, word, or deed. Nonviolence cannot be preached. It has to be practiced. I am certain that if we want to bring about peace to the world, there is no other way except through nonviolence. Nonviolence is the greatest and most active force in the world," Gandhi said. "One person who can express nonviolence in life exercises a force superior to all the forces of brutality. My optimism," Gandhi said, "rests on my belief in the infinite possibilities of the individual to develop nonviolence. The more you develop it in your own being, the more infectious it becomes till it overwhelms your surroundings and by might oversweep the world." Wow, I just love that. So for me, nonviolence, here's what it means for me. Nonviolence begins with the vision that every human being on earth is your sister and brother, that we're all one, all equal, all children of the God of peace. And the deeper we can go into this vision of nonviolence, the truth of our common unity as one human family, the more we discover we're one even with all the creatures and all creation and the Creator. And then the more you realize you can never hurt anyone, because that's your sister and brother, much less kill someone, and in fact that you have to work to help stop the killings and the injustices and wars, to end the suffering of our sisters and brothers around the planet, and to protect all the creatures and the earth. So nonviolence now, I think, is a way of life. It's also a methodology for social change. It's also a spiritual path to the God of peace and to our new future of peace. We renounce violence and vow never to hurt anyone ever again. We practice active love in pursuit of the truth of our common unity. We seek justice and peace for the whole human race. We resist systemic evil and persistently reconcile with everyone. We allow God to disarm our hearts of the roots of violence in us, but there's one catch. There is no cause, however noble, for which we will ever again support the taking of a single human life. Let me repeat that. I call this the bottom line of nonviolence. This is the bottom line, the boundary. There is no cause, however noble, for which we will ever again support the taking of a single human life. I think the days of violence are over. From now on, we reach out to every human being with unconditional, all-inclusive, all-encompassing, non-retaliatory, sacrificial, universal love. So with nonviolence, that means we got to get rid of our guns, refuse to support any military, non-cooperate with the culture of violence, and do everything we can to stop the killings and the wars and injustices. And with Gandhi and Dr. King, from now on, we pursue a big vision. It's a very big vision, the coming of a new culture of nonviolence, what Jesus called the kingdom of God on earth. So I'm getting this from my book, The Nonviolent Life. And there I propose that Gandhi and Dr. King call us to 3 simultaneous attributes. of nonviolence. At most, we might do one of them. Maybe we try to do three. Gandhi and Dr. King want us to do all three, and they showed us how. First, to be nonviolent to yourself. At the same time, second, to be nonviolent toward every human being on the planet and all creatures and all creation. But third, also to be part of the global grassroots movement of nonviolence for justice and peace. That's what I want to talk about over these next 6 weeks. So I invite you to reflect on these three aspects of nonviolence. How nonviolent are you to yourself? How nonviolent are you toward all the people in your life and everybody on the planet and all the creatures and the earth itself? And third, how are you part of the global grassroots movement of nonviolence for justice and peace? So let's start now and next week to look at the first attribute, being nonviolent to ourselves. And this is part 1 of my book, The Nonviolent Life. We're all in different places, so this may not be your issue, but I invite you to go with me as we explore these 3 different attributes to find where you need to grow and deepen in your nonviolence. So my take on this is that we're all deeply wounded by the culture of violence, one way or the other, in all different ways. Maybe we're hurt as children by our families, or by schools, in our youth, or by the wars, or racism, or sexism, somehow from the culture of violence. Violence is everywhere. It's an epidemic. It's an addiction. And we've internalized it, and we're used to it. We're raised to be violent. So we're talking about unlearning our violence and learning and relearning how to be nonviolent. We don't want to act out of our wounds and our hurts anymore. We don't want to be wounding wounders, if you will. We want to be wounded healers and peacemakers. So as people of nonviolence, we want to be nonviolent to ourselves. That's our first step. And that means we, if you will, non-cooperate with our own inner violence. We don't want to nurture the violence within us anymore. We don't want to feed it. We don't want to continue the inner cycle of violence. Nor do we want to beat ourselves up for our failures. Instead, like all the great peacemakers, we want to be peaceful toward ourselves, if you will, to make peace with ourselves, to be gentle and loving toward ourselves. And we certainly don't want to be activists working for justice and peace in the world, but full of violence inside us. We want to live what we aspire for others. So we want to be peaceful, gentle, nonviolent, and loving toward ourselves so that we can be peaceful, gentle, nonviolent, and loving toward all others. I love what the Buddhist Zen master, who's my friend and teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, says. He says, just look deeply within. Isn't that lovely? So I invite us to look deeply within, into the corners of our hearts, and to reflect. What's going on? What happened to me? To reflect on your life journey. Where is violence lurking within me? How am I violent to myself? Why am I violent to myself? Why do I have inner violence within me? How can I lessen it and disarm my inner violence, let go of my inner violence, and become more nonviolent? To cultivate interior peace and interior nonviolence. These are beautiful questions. What we want to do is be really conscious of what's going on inside us and examine our patterns of violence and figure out ways for ourselves to cultivate real deep inner peace. I like how the Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron calls us to practice unconditional friendliness toward ourselves. I think that's beautiful. We learn how to have mercy toward ourselves, to be compassionate with ourselves, and to give ourselves a break. And as we're doing this, we remember that this inner work is connected to our public political work for justice and peace in the world. That's what I like so much. Well, all the great peacemakers in history say that the best way to work on your inner nonviolence is through daily meditation. So I recommend taking at least 30 minutes a day where you sit in silence and solitude and recenter yourself in peace. Whatever that means for you, with the God of peace, or in the Holy Spirit of peace, or if you're a Christian, you sit with the peacemaking, nonviolent Jesus. And it's in that safe place of peace where you can look deeply at your violence, your emotions, your behavior, in light of this loving God of peace, and receive the God of peace, gift of peace, if you will. In meditation, we learn to practice peace and to practice living in gentle peace with the God of peace and with ourselves. And we allow the God of peace to disarm our hearts. And what we want to do is to learn to be at peace with ourselves in a peaceful place, so that later, in the difficult moments, when you're out on the front lines or in a difficult place, you know how to stay centered in your peace, or to return to that place of peace that you're familiar with. This is a political thing, our spiritual practice of meditation. And we want to learn to go through our lives at peace with ourselves, and ultimately to go to our deaths in deep peace and gentleness. Isn't that lovely? So here are 3 questions for you this week. First, how is your life a journey out of the culture of violence and war and into the new life of nonviolence and peace? In other words, where are you on the journey from violence to nonviolence? Second, in light of these 3 attributes, where do you need to grow and deepen? To be nonviolent to yourself, to be nonviolent toward all others, all creatures and all creation, and to be part of the growing global grassroots movement of nonviolence for justice and peace. And third, in particular, which we started to, how can you be more nonviolent to yourself? How can you cultivate inner peace, practice daily meditation for peace, and make peace with yourself? So thank you very much. Send me some comments and questions, and at the end of the week, write a little reflection about what you think about all this. God bless you, and peace be with you.